Here are the top stories for today, September 16, 2020. Filing of charges on some Philhealth officials, just the beginning. Are you in favor of a reduced distancing in public transportation? Financial aid is now available for displaced teachers. And DSWD vows to a more efficient distribution of Social Amelioration Fund. Good day, I'm William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. Task Force Philhealth says its recommendation to file charges against key officials of Philhealth is just the beginning. Among these officials are resigned Philhealth Chief Ricardo Morales, Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer Arnel de Jesus, Senior Vice Presidents Jovita Aragona, Renato Limsiaco Jr., and Israel Francis Pargas. Officer in charge Calixto Gabuya Jr. and Division Chief Bobby Crisostomo. The task force said the officers of the Philhealth Executive Committee exhibited negligence and are administratively and criminally liable under Republic Act 1319 or the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Law and Revised Penal Code. They are also recommended to be held liable for their failure to withhold taxes or IRM or interim reimbursement mechanism releases. The task force also recommended that Duterte strongly admonish and remind the chairman, Health Secretary Francisco Duque III, and members of the Philhealth Board of the grave consequence of their actions or inactions to Philhealth Fund. Meanwhile, Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara clarified that the investigation of the task force would continue following the submission of initial report to President Rodrigo Duterte. He said the Office of the Ombudsman and other constitutional bodies, such as the Commission on Audit and the Civil Service Commission, attended the meetings or hearings of the task force upon its invitation for the purpose of pursuing their own independent investigations and audits. The Department of Transportation maintains that the recent easing of physical distancing in public transport will not result in crowding. DOTr Secretary Arthur Tugade said the recent reduction of passenger distance from 1 meter to 0.75 meters will result in only one or more passengers in jeepneys and buses, while trains will have more passenger capacity depending on its configuration. He said that while the general community quarantine has eased restrictions and allowed for a larger portion of the public to resume work, there is still a need to increase the capacity of public transportation to transport more workers.
Yung reduction to 0.05, hindi ho ibig sabihin niya magsisiksikan na yung mga tao. Sa jeepney sa bus, ang idadag nyo lang po yan, Mr. Chairman, ang idadagdag yan, Madam Chair, 1, 2, 3 hanggang 4 na pasahero. 2 weeks ho, it becomes gradual. Kung walang problema dyan, then pupunta ka dun sa yarda na 0.5. Another 2 weeks. Kung mangyari ho dyan, punta ka sa 0.3.
Meanwhile, a group of medical experts and government health officials expressed support to the easing of physical distancing in public transportation. The group, led by former Department of Health Secretary Dr. Manuel Dairit, said a gradual reduction to 0.5 meter or lower is feasible with the help of other health policies. The group advocated for the strict implementation of the 7 commandments in public transportation. These include the wearing of proper face masks, wearing face shields, no talking and eating, adequate ventilation, frequent and proper disinfection, no symptomatic passengers, and appropriate physical distancing. The Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases would issue a resolution on the easing of physical distancing in public transportation. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said that while the specific text on physical distancing was not written in the recent IATF resolutions, the task force has verbally approved the proposal.
Magkakaroon po ng resolution dyan. Kung wala talagang resolution, the President will decide. Umattend po ako ng meeting na yon. Narinig po yan yung pagbabawas sa social distancing pagdating sa pampublikong transportasyon na naaprubahan po dahil diniscuss po yan doon sa IATF meeting at hindi naman po tumutol ang DOH.
The Philippines is continuing its membership to the Gavi-COVAX alliance. It is a global initiative among vaccine manufacturers and foreign governments to provide countries an efficient vaccine against COVID-19. The initiative seeks to deliver 2 billion safe and effective vaccines that passed regulatory approval and WHO pre-qualification by the end of 2021. As of August 24, about 80 self-financing countries expressed interest in the alliance. President Duterte earlier said Manila would prioritize the acquisition of a safe and effective vaccine from China and Russia after he took a swipe at Western pharmaceutical firms who have allegedly asked for advance payment.
We will continue our membership in the alliance. Ang konteksto lang po, sinasabi niya na mga Western companies ngayon pa lang humihingi na ng kumbaga reservation fee. Samantalang ang bansang China at Russia, wala pong ganyang hinihingi at po pwede pa nga utangin kung magkakaroon sila ng vaccine.
The Department of Health in Central Visayas supports the clinical trial for the coronavirus disease vaccine, saying it will shorten the fight against the pandemic. Dr. Mary Jean Loreche, DOH-7 chief pathologist and COVID-19 spokesperson, said if the populace would shun the clinical trial, health authorities would not be able to find out the advantages and disadvantages of the vaccine. This may also lead to a prolonged fight against the dreaded virus. The Vicente Soto Memorial Medical Center is among the 5 government hospitals in the country that will be tasked to administer the clinical trial. The aggressive isolation efforts and the government's Oplan Kalinga program have tremendously reduced the number of COVID-19 cases. National Policy Against COVID-19 Chief Implementer Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. said the country has recorded 88,109 active cases on August 14 and reduced to 53,754 on September 14 amid the intensified Oplan Kalinga program.
Report po natin kay Presidente, sa buong NCR, 35% po ang decline ng cases. Kung hindi po natin isolate yan, baka may nagtag po tayo ng 100,000 na new cases and it will be compounded and exponentially increase. So napakalaking tulong po talaga ng Oplan Kalinga.
Malacanang gave a very good grade on the country's overall response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said the Philippines' coronavirus testing policy is the best in Asia and has the biggest strength of the country's COVID-19 response.
We'd like to highlight that number 1, yun nga po, no, yung expectations ng mga dalubhasa, mga mathematicians na aabot na tayo dapat ng 3 million nung buwan pa ng Hunyo, hindi po nangyari yan. So all in all, I think we deserve a very good grade. I would give it a grade of 85%. We clearly have the best testing policy in the whole of Asia and probably in the whole world because we have exceeded 3 million. No? And as a percentage of total population, ano na po yan, no? Lubus-lubusan na yan doon sa sinasabi nilang 3%, no? Na dapat matest ang population. At patuloy pa po tayo. No?
Displaced teachers and non-teaching personnel will receive subsidies and allowances under the newly enacted Bayanihan to Recover as One Act or Bayanihan 2. According to the Department of Education, 748 out of 14,435 private schools nationwide are not operating for the school year 2020-21, affecting some 3,233 teachers and 40,345 learners as of September 9.
Sa mga gurong nagtatanong, meron pong ayuda na nakalaan sa inyo. Ito po ay 300 million na subsidies at allowances para sa mga na-displaced na teaching and non-teaching personnel, including part-time faculty sa pribado at pampublikong paaralan ng elementarya, secondary at tertiary level, kasama rin dito po ang part-time faculty sa mga state universities and colleges.
The Commission on Human Rights welcomes the passage of the Bayanihan 2 in the midst of a national health emergency. The CHR says the recent passage of the Bayanihan to Recover as One Act or Bayanihan 2 heed the plea of our healthcare workers to expand government hospital capacity, put additional isolation and quarantine facilities, and ensure adequate supply of protective equipment, among others. The CHR also backed the proposed policy penalizing all forms of abuse and harassment against health workers. Public market vendors in Manila will be prioritized once a second testing laboratory starts to operate, and San Juan City boosts its drug rehabilitation programs. More on these and other news around the metro from Chris Mundo.
The Manila City government now prioritizes market vendors in swab testing with a second COVID-19 testing laboratory located at the Santa Ana Hospital. The city government has earlier provided market vendors with face masks and face shields to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. Next in line are the sidecar or pedicab drivers, tricycle drivers, and jeepney drivers. Meanwhile, San Juan City signed a memorandum of agreement with the United States Agency for International Development or USAID to boost community-based drug rehabilitation program. The agreement is aimed at helping drug users to regain their normal lives and enhance drug prevention initiatives within communities. The program targets to help drug users in the city obtain access to information, care, self-help, and community-based rehabilitation and recovery support. In Taguig, 16 persons were arrested for violating quarantine protocols. All individuals were drinking at a birthday celebration at Aguirre Street, Barangay Lower Bicutan when they were nabbed by operatives of the Taguig Police Hagonoy Substation 9. Joint Task Force COVID Shield Commander Lieutenant General Guillermo Eleazar said the arrest was made possible due to the timely report of a concerned netizen. All those accosted were taken to the basketball court of the barangay, which serves as a holding area for quarantine violators, and were released after 6 hours. Despite their release, Eleazar said these individuals will be charged with the violation of the Taguig City Ordinance on drinking in public places and resistance and disobedience to a person in authority. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Chris Mundo.
Still to come, DSWD vows to a more efficient distribution of Social Amelioration Fund, and the Land Bank extends more loans to its members. More on these when the PNA Newsroom continues.
Sa matinding laban natin sa Coronavirus Disease 2019, sugpuin din natin ang pagkalat ng fake news. Huwag magbahagi ng impormasyon na hindi tiyak ang pinagmulan. I-check mabuti ang source ng balita. Kumuha lamang ng impormasyon mula sa mga official channel ng Department of Health. Huwag magpadala sa maling balita, basta't sama-sama at laging handa. Kaya natin to. Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
You're still watching the PNA Newsroom. The Department of Social Welfare and Development assures a better SAP distribution with their updated lists. To date, the agency has distributed the Social Amelioration Program assistance to some 13.8 million family beneficiaries worth 82.7 billion pesos. DSWD Secretary Rolando Bautista said there will be no difference with the allocation of aid for the Bayanihan 2 except for the improvements they made in their system while learning the nitty-gritty of the COVID-19 emergency cash aid.
May listahan na tayo ang ahensya ng mga benepisyaryo ng SAP na sumailalim sa balidasyon, natitiyak na mas mabilis na ang pagpapahatid ng karagdagang ayuda sa ating mga kababayan. Ang pagkakaroon ng komprehensibo at updated na database ay nakakasiguro sa tamang pagtukoy ng mga tatanggap ng ayuda. Tulad ng Bayanihan 1, layunin ng Bayanihan 2 na makapagbigay ng ayuda upang mabawasan ang epekto ng COVID-19 sa socio-economic well-being ng mga pamilyang Pilipino na apektado ng crisis.
The Presidential Task Force on Media Security, or PTFOMS, denounced the killing of former radio man Jobert Polpog Percasio, who was gunned down by motorcycle riding in tandem gunman in Sorsogon. Initial investigation by the Sorsogon City Police showed that Percasio was shot several times point blank while on board his motorcycle by two armed men wearing helmets and black jackets, resulting to the victim's immediate death. While the motive and identity of the suspects are yet to be determined, local media said the victim, who was no longer working for any mainstream radio station at the time of his death. PTFOM's Executive Director, Undersecretary Joel C. Egco, said the death of Percasio has sounded alarm bells over the growing number of purely Facebook-based broadcast platforms being used by a lot of people. Egco said he would ask the kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas and other media organizations on how these online news outlets should be treated and how the practice is regulated by any existing group, if any. Meanwhile, the Philippine National Police in Bicol created a special investigation team called Task Force Percasio to dig deeper into the shooting incident. Sorsogon Governor Francis Chis Escudero ordered a thorough probe on the incident, saying that any attack or the killing of a journalist is also an attack on the very same freedom that we swore to uphold and protect. Bicycle riders in EDSA received early Christmas gifts from the PNP Highway Patrol Group on Wednesday morning. HPD Director Eliseo Cruz led the distribution of visibility vests, T-shirts, and safety manuals to about 300 cyclists along EDSA Annapolis southbound lane. This was part of the HPG's road safety campaign in cooperation with the Automobile Association of the Philippines. Cruz highlighted the importance of wearing visibility vests while riding a bicycle to avoid accidents, particularly in instances where motorists could not see a biker on the road. Several LGUs have allotted special bike lanes for those using bicycles as modes of transportation during the COVID-19 pandemic. Zamboanga City eyes vaccinating over 81,000 children against measles. And public schools in Surigao del Norte receive about 7,000 workbooks in time for classes next month. Here is our report.
The Zamboanga City Health Office is set to vaccinate over 81,000 children for its measles rubella supplemental immunization activity scheduled from October 26 to November 25. The program targets children 9 months to 5 years old regardless of the immunization status to protect them from measles, rubella, and its complications. The city government has not yet lifted its declaration of a measles outbreak in 2018 because the highly contagious virus still persists in the city. In Davao City, the Office of 1st District Representative Paulo Pulong Duterte has initiated a feeding program in 10 identified depressed barangays within the Lawmakers Congressional District. The first leg of the Campaña Contra Malnutrition was conducted Tuesday in Purok 27 Pandaman, Barangay Maa. The program will run for 3 months and will cater to malnourished children, pregnant women, and lactating mothers. The program is under the Pulong-Pulong ni Pulong, which aims to bring government services straight to the barangays under the 1st Congressional District. Meanwhile, Nickel Asia Corporation affiliated Taganito Mining Corporation turned over Tuesday some 7,000 workbooks to the provincial government of Surigao del Norte for public schools in time for the class opening next month. The workbooks were handed over to Surigao del Norte Governor Francisco Matugas as part of its social development and management program. The mining firm added that the school materials will also benefit schools in Siargao Island. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Lid Kabagan.
In our business news, Land Bank of the Philippines vows to continue to cater to Filipinos' funding needs amid the impact of the pandemic, especially now that Bayanihan 2 has been signed into law. Land Bank is set to offer loan programs to help several sectors address the impact of the pandemic. The Restoration and Invigoration Package for a Self-Sufficient Economy toward Upgrowth for LGUs, or Rise Up LGUs, is set to help finance innovative LGU projects. The Countryside Financial Institutions Enhancement Program, or CFIEP, is to boost capital of smaller banks to address the impact of payment defaults by their own borrowers due to the pandemic, as well as calamities and disasters. The CFIEP is a joint program with the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas and the Philippine Deposit Insurance Corporation. Meanwhile, the interim students' loan for tuition towards upliftment of education for the development of the Youth or I-Study program is to help parents and guardians finance the education of their kids or benefactors for school years 2021 to 2022. Up next, alleged female members of the New People's Army reveal show how they exploited in the mountains. And a drive-in mass opens in Tacloban. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders.
Alamin ang tamang paraan ng pag-ubo upang mapigilan ang paglaganap ng coronavirus disease 2019. Ugaliing magdala ng panyo o tissue. Kung uubo o babahing, takpan ang buong ilong at bibig gamit ang panyo o tissue. Kung walang dalang panyo o tissue, maaaring gamitin ang braso na pantakip. Kung nakararamdam na kailangan umubo o bumahing, agad na dumistansya sa mga tao sa paligid. Huwag dumura kung saan-saan, gumamit ng tissue at itapon sa basurahan. Ugaliin ang paghuhugas ng kamay at paggamit ng alcohol o hand sanitizer upang mamatay ang mikrobyo. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
The Philippine Army's 802nd Infantry Brigade on Tuesday condemned the New People's Army for using children as human shields as its members fled from government troops during a clash in Leyte on Sunday night. The Army also condemned what it called the act of treachery by left-leaning party list organizations who continue to assist and condone the terroristic acts of the NPA. A soldier was killed and 3 NPA members were captured in the 10-minute clash between government troops and armed rebels in Cananga town. The NPA terrorists were reportedly seen speaking to a group of people and children before the clash. They used children as shields as the government troops were closing in. Troops seized a caliber .45 pistol with magazine and live ammunition, contraceptives for women, identification cards of anak pawis, a personal identification card of Tabang Sinirangan, food supplies, subversive documents, mobile phones, and other personal belongings. Meanwhile, troops from the 93rd Infantry Battalion of the Philippine Army rescued 2 minors who were used as sex slaves by the NPA in Barangay Rizal, Cananga, Leyte. The 2 were also among those used as human shields by the fleeing communist terrorists. They claimed they were not made to take contraceptives and used as sex slaves along with the NPA's female members. They have been turned over to the Municipal Social Welfare Development Office. Over 100 former New People's Army rebels in Surigao del Sur become test scholars as they turn over a new leaf and join the folds of the government. More on this from Marita Moahe.
At least 113 former members of the Communist New People's Army in Surigao del Sur received over 1 million pesos worth of scholarship package from the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority. The scholarship package was handed over in time with the awarding of the Enhanced Comprehensive Local Integration Program at the provincial capital in Tandag City on Tuesday. The scholarship package includes free training, free assessment, and free training support fund. This assistance is on top of the other livelihood and cash assistance awarded by other line agencies to the former rebels. Meanwhile, 5 members of the CPP-NPA voluntarily surrendered to government forces in Kalayaan, Laguna on Sunday. The 202nd Infantry Brigade identified them as members of the CPP-NPA's NPA Sub-Regional Military Area, which operates in the boundaries of Batangas, Cavite, Rizal, and Quezon. The surrenderers also yielded 3 firearms. 3 more active members of the CPP-NPA also voluntarily surrendered on Monday to the operating troops of the Philippine Army's 91st Infantry Sinagtala Battalion, Aurora Province Provincial Office, and other intelligence network operatives. The surrenderers were a squad leader of Platoon 4A4 Kumiting Larangang Guerrilla Cesar and 2 of its members. The 3 rebels claimed they surrendered due to unfulfilled promises for their better future by the terrorist organization and exhaustion due to non-stop running from the government troops. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Marita Muahe.
In sports, professional boxers in Benguet Province who were denied of livelihood in the past 6 months got a reprieve from a boxing aficionado, promoter cum philanthropist from Thailand. Some 37 boxers from the Highland Boxing Gym in La Trinidad received bags of goodies that include 5 kilos of rice, 2 dozen eggs, and grocery items from Nari Sing Wangcha. They were the second batch of Sing Wangcha's beneficiaries who could not make a living since the community lockdown started last March 17. The 37 fighters were supposed to be included in the list of Social Amelioration Program beneficiaries of the Department of Social Welfare and Development, coursed by the Games and Amusement Board. Highland owner Brioco Santig said the aid is a big help for the boxers who have been starving after being denied of their livelihood. Churchgoers in Tacloban City can now hear Mass and listen to a priest's homily live by attending a drive-in Mass. The outdoor Mass at the St. Josemaria Escriva Mission Station in Apitong Village is scheduled every Sunday at 6 p.m. This is for those who cannot attend the Mass inside the church due to being immunocompromised or those who are not qualified for quick response coding. The parish still offers regular Mass at 7 a.m., 10:30 a.m. and 4 p.m. for walk-in churchgoers. Catholic churches in the city have already opened their doors for churchgoers who wanted to physically attend the Mass, strictly complying with minimum health protocols set by the Department of Health or DOTr. Churches also offer online Masses for those who cannot attend the service. Here's the latest in our community billboard. The food and package delivery services of Grab Philippines is now available 24 hours in Metro Manila starting Wednesday, September 16. The Grab Express service and select merchants on Grab Food are extending their operating hours to help ease the impact of COVID-19 on businesses. Some service will, however, be unavailable in certain areas in Metro Manila due to local government policies. The complete list of participating merchants is available on Grab's website. Meanwhile, the government is targeting October 1 for the reopening of hotels for staycation and leisure guests. Tourism Secretary Bernadette Romulo Puyat, however, said the date is still tentative as the agency has yet to finalize the guidelines. The DOT is also waiting for the release of protocols on antigen testing by the Department of Health. To date, hotels under GCQ areas are only allowed to accept guests who have existing long-term bookings, distressed overseas Filipinos, healthcare workers, and other employees from exempted establishments. Here's another look at today's biggest stories. Filing of charges on some Philhealth officials, just the beginning. Are you in favor of a reduced distancing in public transportation? Financial aid is now available for displaced teachers. And DSWD vows to a more efficient distribution of Social Amelioration Fund. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check more news content, visit our webpage or head onto the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, I am William Theo. Good day and stay safe, everyone.